Good morning, Becky.
Good
Just
morning.
just a quick update. Um, I have the reload salary plans and the reload employees left to do, and those are the two most complex ones. But the budget data is done. All the other lookup tables are done, and I'm probably about 75% done with the salary plan. So
Okay.
I'm really hoping. And do you want me to go ahead and create a new year for you when I get all that done and tested?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank
Okay, now
you.
do you want to keep your vacancies that are in the model in the adopted budget, or just start over from wherever you are?
We usually pull we upload the vacancies, or we should.
Right, but if you
Right.
created budgeted positions in your model, do you want to leave those there and then you can reconcile them out, or just
No, budgeted positions don't get rolled because they become people generally.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Some people want to keep them in there so they can see, okay, we budgeted here. Oh yeah, that position is filled here, and you can kind of reconcile them. But that's fine.
No.
It's a quick option on when you create the new year. So
Okay, cool.
okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Scott, this is Rhonda. Can you hear me?
I can.
So I might have missed a conversation, but are we supposed to be waiting to create our new year because you're working on something?
No, that's only for the Northwest Regional ESD districts.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's only 3 districts that are affected by it. So
Okay,
and
thanks.
you're not one of them. So,
Okay, then I will get mine created. I didn't do it the other day because I thought
Yeah.
I heard you talking about that.
Yeah,
so.
because you actually live in the same place where your data is. So
Well, that is true.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Did everybody get this document that I'm looking at right now called ESP Employee Grid Calculations? I sent it yesterday via Zoom.
Yes, I received it.
Okay. If you didn't, let me know. And I will find a way to send it. And you might want to go ahead and open it up, or you don't have to, you can just look at mine. But I'm going to explain how these columns, which I know are quite numerous in the employee grids, are built. So I guess we'll get started. It's 9:01. I'll talk for a while, and then Scott has some stuff he wants to talk about. And then, of course, we're always open to questions or comments. So please feel free to ask at any time. What this document explains is how we get to the total. Now, the total cost, each one of these is like a column, but it might look different on your system, and it actually looks different on mine too, because these column headings are editable. So these are like the default column names: total cost, total pay. But here you see total pay in the document is total wages in our this scenario, this district. But anyway, we're going to explain how we get to total cost, which is at the end. Normally it's the far right column of your model on the employees tab, how we get to here. This is the total of all the cost. So scroll back to the left. So it basically starts with the dollar start. This is the normal layout, and I think most people have it this way. Work days, work hours, plan code, FTE. That's really all you want to see here, unless you need some other columns. But generally, these are the default columns. Let's see. Hang on. Okay, let me send this to you real quick. Jennifer and Bill, 1 second. I'm gonna try to send it to you through Zoom here, so I hope it gets to you. That's the bill, and you said Jennifer needs one as well. Is Jennifer on here? Yeah. Okay, so I hope that gets to you. That's what I used yesterday. We're very new to Zoom, so we're not quite sure, but I think that should work for you, Bill. Let me know if it doesn't. And you guys can always email us after the training if you need something too. So where was I? So, okay, so the dollars start, it always works like left to right. It always starts with the annual rate. And the annual rate comes from the salary plan, whatever salary plan they're attached to here in plan code, that determines their annual rate. And just like we talked about yesterday, it's all broken down to hourly rate on the salary plans. And then those hours are transferred over to the employee by their work time, which is 186 times 8 times the salary plan hourly rate. I don't know if you know or not, but anytime you see the little comment icon there, you can, okay, you guys got it, good. You can put your mouse cursor over the plan code here and get more information about that salary plan without having to switch to the salary plan tab. It tells you what their Infinite Visions plan code was, the name of the grade plan step there, what they're making, what their hourly rate is, tooltip glyph. It's called the tooltip glyph. Thank you. What they were making in Infinite Visions, if there's any COLAs applied, if they've stepped, and there's 2 of them there because it used to, or you can have 2 COLAs depending on the date, effective date. Because I know a lot of districts are using that this year. The COLAs don't go in effect until January 1st. So I went over this yesterday, but I don't think with this morning group, you can add an effective date column on the salary plans and say, I want the COLA to start on this date. So you just add the effective date column. There's one for stepping and there's one for COLA, and you can just put in a date, and then that COLA or that step won't go into effect until that date. So that's why you see dates here on the tooltip. Generally, it's going to be the start of your fiscal year, which for most of you guys is July 1st. So this person did step, and I know that anyway because there's a purple up arrow there, which means they did step. They came in on 25/6/10 and they stepped to, there's the step from Infinite Visions. They were on step 10, now they're on step 11. But anyway, step enabled, yes, they did step. And there's the dates if you want to do delayed stepping. They're not on an hourly plan, there's no additional days. And then this is kind of how we do the dates with the COLAs, because we break it down by how many actual work days there are in a fiscal year for them. And so they're getting 186 days of the COLA, even though there is no COLA. But if you were to change that date, you would see, okay, they're getting, half of that, 93 days at no COLA. And then if you had that set halfway, if you had the date set halfway, then the other 93 would be midway. So anyway, it's kind of behind the scenes stuff, but that's how we do the COLAs and the stepping. But then this is important. This says which benefit plan they're on. Well, actually, it is what plan they're on, but remember that's driven by which salary plan they're on, because the benefit plans are assigned via the salary plan. So this salary plan 25 is set to be certified district employees. That's the benefit plan that they're on. And then this is the FTE annualization source. So if we were to, if we needed to analyze this person, it would annualize to the work calendar, whatever work calendar they're assigned to. And that could be set to work calendar, salary plan, or position. There's the calc source we talked about, and then the methods. So work hours. So work hours meaning 8 hours. They're 8 hours over the position's work hours. So since they're 1.0, I'm sure the position work hours is 8. So 8/8 would be 1.0, and that's where this 1.0 is coming from. So a lot of good information on this plan code tooltip if you need it. You won't see this stuff. This is for us down here. You won't see that, but anyway, good stuff there in the plan code to see how we get to this annual rate, which is the first dollars usually that you're concerned with for an employee. All right. So if we look at our calculations document, that would be this right here, annual rate. Let me make that a little smaller. Because what we're going to do is we're going to build up the total and to get to the total salary first. And that is the first part is the annual rate. Then the second part are any pay components, supplemental pay, and we'll go to the assumptions in just a second to see that. Any supplemental pay that is marked or set as salary. It's included in their salary. That's what this is saying. Any pay component, notice this whole box is pay components. Any pay components or supplemental pay that is marked as just salary, which means it stays with their salary account code, would go in between annual rate and salary total. On this document, it's called total salary. So any salary that's marked supplemental pay that's marked as salary plus their annual rate equals total salary, or salary total in my example here. So 77,270 plus 4154 is 81. You can always do a quick check, just grab, drag over, look down, 81,424. So that's where the salary total is coming from. Let me go over to the assumptions real quick. So here are the pay components, the supplemental pay. Notice we have like 6, 7 set up here. And that supplemental pay that was just added in between the salaries was the extra duty. And you can see that it has a little different colored icon here. And that means it's a salary pay component. And if you look over here, the result, you do all of the stuff to calculate your supplemental. And then the result, we say we want it to go into include in salary. That's the only one for that is a salary pay component. These other ones are supplemental pays, but they need to go to a different account mask. They are not included in the employee's account, main account code. If you'll notice back on the extra duty, the default account mask is empty because we're saying no, keep it with their main salary. But the other ones here, which have different icons, they are supplemental. And here are the three, there's 3 types: the supplemental, that go to a different account code, the salary, which stays within their salary, and then benefits, which is non-taxed. And I'll talk about that in a second. But there's 3 of these, and you'll see there's 3 icons over here. These top ones are supplemental. Then we have the one that's included in salary, and the one with the little emergency bag is benefit pay component. So back to the employees. So what I did was I knew that extra duty was salary. So to add this column, I right click, I went to model, and then there's a whole pay component submenu. And remember, when you're using, when you're looking for a column, always the first thing to think about is which data set do I want? I'm in the model. Normally it's going to be the model. So you right click and you go to your model data set. If you're looking for something from Visions or the daily, of course you go to there, or the baseline, but normally it's going to be the model. And then we have pay component has its own submenu. So I added the extra duty because I knew that was the one that had the include in salary pay component. And I put it here just for demonstration purposes to show its annual rate plus that pay component for salary total. Okay, pretty simple. Then once we get past total wages or total salary or whatever you call it, then we have the that supplemental pay components that roll up to a different result mask other than the salary. Then those get summed up. So here I have, I think the only one that had any money in it was longevity. Or there were others, but I just added one. But all of those other ones that we saw on the assumptions, I could have added as well. So then those go between your salary total and total wages. And again, I don't think okay, it's called total pay on here. I could change that to total pay if I wanted. That can be whatever you want. A lot of districts have them different naming. So now you have your total salary that we added up plus any pay components that are not included in their salary between salary total and total wages. And that's how we get to total wages. And total wages is important because that is what fixed costs are calculated on: Social Security, unemployment, PERS, etc. And then that's why the next column is fixed cost total. And if you look at the calculation sheet here, here are the fixed cost. These are set up. Let me go to the assumptions. These are set up here under the calculations for the fixed cost: PERS, PERS bonds, Social Security, workers' comp, unemployment. So this number is what's used to calculate these numbers. We just do a total here as default, and you can add the tooltip glyph. If you just let it sit over there, you will see the calculations based on the details of each calculation. So here's a good example: 7.65% times total wages to get their Social Security. And then this column is just an addition of all of these, a summary of all of these calculations. But if you ever need to see them individually, you can right click, go to the model. There is a fixed cost submenu. I could show each column separately if you ever needed to. But the default is we just show the summing, and a lot of times you can just mouse over it to see. But know that it's being calculated on this total wages. So we have the total salary plus any supplemental for total pay, plus the fixed cost calculations. And then last, I say last, it's normally near the end, is benefits. And when we say benefits, we mean the benefit plans, the medical benefits. A lot of districts call these what we call fixed costs, they call them benefits. So I'm sorry if it's confusing. Or they call these payroll costs, but we always call benefits the medical benefits. Over in the assumptions, these are the benefits, the benefit plans. They get assigned to the salary plans, which determine the salary plan that the person is on determines how much benefits they get. This person gets 0. I think it's overridden for this person. There's a red pin, it means something's been overridden. Override benefit plan, right? So for that person, that's why it's 0. But this person's getting 17,000 in benefits. And the reason this is on the right side of the fixed cost and the total wages is because this is not included in the wages as far as having fixed cost. You don't calculate Social Security or unemployment on benefit dollars. If you let it hover in the benefit cell, you'll see that the benefit plan that they're attached to, they have to be 0.5 or higher FTE, and they get a monthly rate of $14.66 for an annual rate of $17,593. And if there's been any inflation factors, we have $100 a month inflation factor on this. So that's how we arrived at $17,593. So far we've got total pay plus fixed cost, and here just this benefits here, the main benefits that comes from the salary plan. But there's also, as we saw, there could be a benefit supplemental pay, like long-term disability. You can see here it has the icon, and it's marked as benefits, include in benefits. So that's why it's separate, and it goes between benefits, which is the benefits from the salary plan, plus any supplemental benefits, the LTD, for the total benefits. And then you get to the big number at the end, which is cost total. So here's the benefits from the salary plan, any benefit that is a supplemental pay component, add those together to get total benefits. So in the end, you have the total pay plus the total pay plus fixed costs plus total benefits to get total cost, or cost total, or whatever it's called there, the last column. Any questions, comments? Nothing? Okay. So that's good to know. Going down this document a little bit, you'll see what we talked about yesterday was how the FTE calc methods are created. I do see this note. I think this might be old. FTE calc method is a system-wide. I don't think that's true anymore because it can be changed per salary plan.
Yes, Tim, that is old. It used to be a system-wide setting, but we had to move to the granularity of each salary schedule.
Right, right. So I will take that out. And then here's just how we do some additional calculations, benefits FTE, head count, total FTE, which is just a sum of employees, different positions, how benefits are calculated, work week hours, total work hours, here's work time, which is important to know, work hours times work days, their total work time. And then this is what we talked about yesterday, annual rate. An employee's annual rate is their work hours times their work days times the salary plan hourly rate that they are assigned to. That's how you get on the salary plans. That's why it's broken down to the hourly rate, so that we can just take this could be combined to say work time, because work hours times work days is work time times the hourly rate of the salary plan. So just some good information to help understand the column layout. Questions? Everybody have this document? Anybody need it? No? Okay. All right. Let's see. Next on my agenda is I wanted to show find employee. Is there a way to hide this? Hang on. Is there a way to hide this bar? Does anybody know? Is it an option maybe?
You can drag it and move it to your other monitor, I think, Tim.
Oh, look at that. Okay. Sweet. Okay, cool. These two icons here, and this might look weird. You guys do not have this last button that we do. This button is just when you click it, it launches nuclear weapons. So we don't use it very often, but that's what that's for. Your help and web help. This one is if you want to find an employee and they're not in your current scope. Of course, right now I have full open scope, so everybody is in here. But let's say I wanted to find Seth Adler and he was not in my scope. You can click on that. And this means that that icon is what's known as like a database, and the binoculars look over the entire, all the employees, not just the scope. And you're given a little find employee box, and you can search by the default is name. That's usually what's used, but you can also do employee ID, assignment ID. I don't know if those are used, but employee ID is sometimes used, but name, you just type in the name. And then if you need to, you can use a wildcard. I always suggest the any, because in case you misspell it, it just says anything before it or after, give me that. Click OK. It basically does what's similar to like a QBE. And it looks for anybody that has ADLER in their name. And I believe it's first name and last name it searches. So anything in that string, it will find. And it just puts your grid into just those employees that it finds. You can see it even puts it up there in the scope, so you know what and why you're looking at that. And then you can make changes and do whatever you want, just like a regular grid. And then when you're done, the reset here will get you out of it back to the scope that you had. If you have a lot of employees, it's probably best not to have an open scope. It takes a little bit longer to load. And then another find option is if you're pretty sure that, or if you just want to look for anything in the grid, you could even look for a number. But let's say I know Adler's on this list somewhere, you can do it. This is just a search grid. And it highlights what I had him highlighted, so that's why it's in there. But you could do a find next if you know he has multiple fundings and you're looking for him. You can put whatever you want in there, but you can also, if you're looking for a certain number, maybe, you know somebody has a certain benefits or annual rate, you could do a search for that, and you just click entire grid, and it will search just the grid, not just the name over here on the left. So let's see, I see. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, sorry, I lost it. Do a search for 13, and it starts trying to search as you type. So it found 1379. There, oh, look, there's 1379.9. So anything with that string in it, it's going to find. So it's a good way to look for numbers or anything that could be in the grid. But make sure you select entire grid if you want to search the grid and not just, we call this over here the tree column. Looking for just a name. Okay. That's for finding. This column here, or this button here, will reset your columns to the default layout. I laid out all these columns to do the demonstration. And I guess while I'm here, it's a good thing to show that I saved this layout in saved grid view. I called it calculations 2. You can, once you have a layout, you can save it. You click the green plus, you give it a name, calc demo. It's got to be 10 characters. We'll just call it calc demos just to get there. And then you're given a few options. First of all, you have to think about, I don't care about the scope. So I don't, because you can save this, not just the column layout, but the scope layout in conjunction with your column layout. But I don't really care about what scope I'm in. I just want to make sure I preserve my columns. So I make sure I have include column layout. checked, and I don't really care about the scope. And by scope selection, we mean like if I had a center in there, if you had numbers in there, that's scope selection, and scope layout is the order. But I don't really care about saving scope selection or scope layout. Or ideal scope. Ideal scope is when you're not summed and the object is at the bottom. We call that ideal scope. That's generally when you want to do changes to budget items. Public is when you have other users within your district and you want them to be able to see this. I'll show you when I go back up here that you have a public, and if it's not public, it's just a private view for only you will see it. But if you want your other coworkers to see this saved grid view, you could select public. And for app admins, if you select user access, this will make it available on the user form if you want to assign it to like managers that sign in. You could force them to say only have a certain grid layout, scope layout, or column layout. If you select this user access, it will cause it to show up in the user admin form and make it selectable so that you could force some of your managers into a certain grid layout and keep them at that grid layout. Don't worry about this other stuff. So save that. So there's my calc demos. These are all the public views. If I had any private views, I think it would be above here or maybe below here. And if I ever change and get rid of this column layout, I want to get back there, I could just go up there, click calc demos, and it would take me back to this layout. A lot of times after you're done working or after you're done looking at something, you might want to put it back to the default, which is what I will do. But then I'm going to add a pay component back so that you can see how that's accomplished. So this will take me back to our default layout. Which is annual rate, total wages, fixed cost, benefits total, and finally the cost. But there's a lot of stuff in between there. Any questions yet? Feel free to interrupt me. I just feel like I'm sitting here talking to myself, so that's okay. I do that anyway. Okay. So I want to add that pay component column back just to show you guys how to do it. So let's say, okay, I know there's a difference here between annual rate and total wages. What is that difference? And because of Tim's awesome calculation sheet that I closed, you know there must be a pay component that is being, at least one pay component between these two. You can go to the assumptions. What is that? I don't know what happened there. You can see, oh, okay, it's extra duty because you know that icon there means it's a supplemental pay that is included in the salary, and it's called extra duty. I always forget the name, so I remember extra duty, because then you go back here, and when you want to add a column, you add it based on which side of the column you want to place it next to. So I want it on the right-hand side of annual rate, or the left-hand side of total wages. So I click on the right-hand side of the annual rate column, model, pay component submenu, and then there's extra duty. So there's my, and this is like the amount column of the extra duty. There are, excuse me, there are some other columns for this pay component, and that's what that, I think we call that a hamburger menu icon right there means. Because now when you right click, you'll have this new, let me show you over here. If I right click, you'll see there is no pay component submenu there, or menu item there. But if you right click on the pay component, it is there, extra duty. So these are the columns for that pay component. And you'll need to add these, like if you're doing an override or you're you need to give people the pay component or take away the pay component or change the pay component for certain manually if it's not being calculated. A lot of times we have an add common, which are generally the only the columns that you'll need. I'll click add common. Another reason to have a smaller scope, the grids will load quicker. So this, I don't want to get too deep into pay components really, but this is the enable, which says I want Martha Abbott to have this pay component. It's set up, let me go back to the assumptions real quick. I don't know why I keep getting that. It's set up to, it's based on their daily rate. The multiplier is their daily rate. So you call it day, how many days you put this in, this is called the factor. This is like for prorating. She's 1.0, so it's 100%. And it's doing 10 times her daily rate for 40. That's where the 4154 is coming. So for this type of pay component, you don't put in the amount, you just put in the days, and it knows to calculate it based on how we have it set up on the assumptions. This number times their daily rate to give her a number. And these would not be light green meaning editable if on the assumptions you don't have allow factor override checked or qualifier checked. Because a lot of times you will have a qualification. You could say, well, they have to be on a certain salary plan, or there's a million different qualifications you could have, but you might have some that you want to include for that pay component, even though they wouldn't qualify like a majority of them do. You would have to turn on allow override to to give them that pay component. And then if you wanted to change the rate that they're getting, you would have to allow factor override as well. That's if those were not checked, these would not be light green, they would be dark green, because you're telling ESP to qualify them of whether or not they get it and to qualify what their factor would be. Something like this, I think it has to be manually entered, so it would make sense to allow the override. So
Hey,
just
Tim,
yes, ma'am.
this is Rhonda. So can we go back to talking about pay components? I feel like I learn something new every year, but if you go back to the assumptions and the pay type, you said include in salary. I've not used that. I might all say supplemental pay. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. So if it's marked as include in salary, it will roll into their salary account code. It will stay, if you go to the financials and you're looking at 0111 salaries, it would be included in that. It doesn't break out like some of the other, I'm not sure what I did there. Something like coaching, it's rolled into 0131 on the financials. So you might have
okay, so if you want it in the object of the salary, of an actual salary, then you want to choose that pay type.
if you want it to stay with their salary,
Okay.
then yes.
And if I don't even have a drop down in that area, is there a reason for that?
You mean
So
this
if
drop?
I'm on my pay, on my assumptions, the pay type, you have to have a drop down to change that?
Right. Is your scenario locked maybe?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, thanks.
So, right. And then benefits, same situation for the benefits. See, now here's a good example. I made a change. I really didn't want to make a change. I could go back and change it back. But anytime you make changes and you don't like them, you can always just refresh. Click the refresh button. And this is always kind of good to look at. If this is the pending changes, let me cancel this real quick. If you'll notice, as soon as you make a change in ESP, the save icon and this pending changes icon go active. Because sometimes you'll see that and you'll wonder, well, what did I change? You can open the pending changes. I know it's a little hard to interpret, but it just tells you kind of what you changed. The form detected that there's a change, and it's asking you, do you want to save? Just kind of like in Word or Excel, if you make a change and then try to close it, it's going to know that you made a change and ask you if you want to save. If I were to switch tabs, it would say you have changes. Do you want to keep the changes, save it, or get rid of the changes? And if you make changes and you don't want them, you can just refresh. And let's say you made these changes. Do you want to refresh? Just click refresh. All right. Back to the employees. So just remember that if you just add a pay component from the pay components submenu here, you're just going to get the total amount column. You can't edit this one or anything. This is just, hey, this is just the product of this other information. If you need more detail or want to enable or change the factor, you have to right click on that pay component and add the other. You could probably just add common. You probably won't need job code, pay type code, prohibit. Is that a new one, Scott? Prohibit? Does that, if they qualify for it, but you don't want them to have it? I'm not sure. That's new to me too. Let's see.
No, we talked about that on like Monday or Tuesday in the change log. It's if you have your qualifications all set up and they're working really, really well, but you have like just a handful or one or two employees who, no matter what, they don't get it. In the past, you would have to remember every time you copied your employees over from the current set or did other reset pay component qualifications, you'd have to remember to go into those 2 or 3 or 4 employees and uncheck the enable. This allows you to set prohibit, and once prohibit is set, it stays set. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we all learned something new.
Well, I think everybody else knew that because they were listening on earlier in the week. I'm just kidding.
Right. All right, cool. So that's good to know. Yeah, actually, this happens a lot because a lot of supplemental pay is based on the actuals, and the only way to get, if you do this at the beginning of the year, and then there's been a lot of employees that are getting the supplemental pay. The only way to get it in is to reload the employees. And you have to make sure that when you reload, you check update model factors on next employee reload. So it reloads, and anybody who matches this qualification will copy it into the model as well. Remember yesterday I was saying that we normally do not copy into your model unless you specifically say so. This would be one of those cases. But if you know that this employee, even though she's getting it in IV, she shouldn't get it next year, or for whatever reason, you could click the prohibit. And even though it comes in from the actuals as her having it, that would stop her from doing it. I do remember that now. That was an issue where every time people reloaded, it would, there was no way to stop it. You would have to go in and manually uncheck it from people that you don't want to have it for next year for the budget. So that seems like a good feature to have. Okay. So if you ever want to get rid of columns, you right click, hide, right click, hide. If I were to right click on the top level, it would get rid, no, I'll just do that. It gets rid of that, all the ones that belong to this group, this pay component. One thing I wanted to mention as far as if you want to see, I was showing you individual pay components between annual rate, total wages. No, actually, it was what? I'm missing a column. It was salary total. Oh, I added that in the wrong spot. There is a summary column of your pay components that you might want to add instead of having to add individual pay components. You can add, okay, show me all these, just a summary of the salary pay components, just a summary of the supplemental pay components. And I'll show you that just a second. All right. So I only have one between annual rate and salary total, but if I wasn't sure or I didn't care about them individually, you can right click, go to that pay component submenu, and you notice that this is the total of all the pay components. So I want supplemental salary total. So there could be 4 or 5 pay components that add up to these totals. And this just shows the total instead of showing each individual pay component. And you have that for each one of the different types of supplemental pay. So I only had one anyway, but there's, let me add this one between salary total and total wages, because it had about 3. But you won't see all 3, you will only see the the total. So it's similar to like the fixed cost total. It just sums everything up and puts it in one column. It sums the other columns up and just adds it in one column. It was just a summary of all the pay components that are marked as supplemental. Okay, if you don't need to see the individual pay component. Any questions so far about these columns or pay components columns?
It's Rhonda. Could you go through how to, I forgot how to do it. I know you went through it, how to rename your column title.
You right click.
Yep.
And you go to Scott, can you help me out?
It has to be a column that you can change the label on.
Right.
So how do we know what those are? What are they, blue?
There it is.
Well, you'll have the update column label available if it's a column that can be changed. There's another way, Tim, if you go to, I mean, this is a way you can kind of review everything. Go to the table editor and show them the application settings. And if you're an app admin, you have access to this, and it tells you, hey, be careful when you're working in here, is what that message means.
What's it called?
Application settings. And this is where a lot of application settings are, but if you find stuff that has label on the end of it, see, like here's your union code label, your salary step, your plan step, anything that has the word label on it,
right,
you can change. like total wages, it's actually the column is total pay. Like if you wanted to change your salary plan label to schedule, because that's what they're really called in visions, you could actually change that to schedule, and it would show schedule on
Right
all
in the
labels.
table editor or
Yes.
out on the grid?
I don't know that there's a spot. You might be able to change this if you put the salary plan column in the employee grid. You might be able to get the change label.
Here's one you did on Monday where you did the user flag, eye color.
Yeah. It would probably be cool if I broke out all the system defined labels into the own application labels table, to where you can see all the labels and not have all this other gobbledygook in there. Because this is really the master settings of the entire app. This is where you have like your work hours rounding, you have annual rounding and things like that in that table.
Yeah, this is a scary place to go.
That's
I
where we
don't, I
give
don't
you
ever
a,
go in here.
that's where we give you the warning to start with.
But if we want to change it on the grid, you just have to right click, and if it has update label, then we can change it right there.
Right.
Right. Look, Rhonda, if you look at my screen, which
Okay,
total wages, I right click on that because I know that's changeable.
gotcha.
And then I've got update column label,
Yep.
and I might want to call it total cost.
No, don't do that because we already have a total cost.
Do we?
Total pay is really
Total
what
pay,
that means.
right.
Yeah. Total remuneration if you really want to get fancy.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
So now that's been changed from total wages to total pay. Yeah, good question, Rhonda. Thank you.
I'm trying to think if there's a way subtly because only an app admin can change it. I suppose if I could, if it's a changeable label, I could italicize the label, but then it's going to make the column headings be different for column to column. And it's not something you do that often.
Right. And that's system wide, right, Scott? I mean, it changes it, right?
Yep.
In all scenarios, not just this scenario.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of how we rebrand ESP, so it looks as close to the same terminology or nomenclatures that your ERP system uses. The biggest one that we did first was the account code, because in other systems most of the time it's called account code, but a lot of times it's like chart field in PeopleSoft or a budget string in other areas. So that was the big one because we want people to be able to recognize the values that they're looking at and say, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah. If you'll notice the only editable as of right now, because the only two columns I have are work days and work hours. So if you need to change,
actually the account code's editable too.
well, I know I'm going to get to that next.
Okay.
But as far as just changing their work days and work hours, you can just click right here. Whenever you want to move an employee, we've made the account code. It used to be you had to right click, open up employee details and change their account code. But since it's a fairly simple operation, hang on, what did I do? Oh, I lost database connection, just a second.